Hi, Cassie Garcia here, and I just want to take a minute to talk to you about the plant Comfrey. We are 3 families who come together to help each other grow in our faith, family, homesteading, and whatever else life throws our way. Join us on this journey as we sow and grow together. First, let's talk about identifying Comfrey. This plant was growing with my Comfrey, and it is not. It's actually mullein, which is very useful for other things. You can see how fuzzy it is compared to the Comfrey plant, which does have a little bit of texture, but it doesn't have that kind of fluffy fuzziness. You can see the lines on the leaves, how they look, and the leaves do come to a little bit of a point compared to the mullein plant, which is a little more rounded, a little more blunt on the tip of the leaves. But similarly, they all come from the center of the plant. All of the leaves come out from the center, and then a stalk will shoot up, which more leaves will come out of, and then also these beautiful purple flowers, which the bumblebees love. So now let's talk about Comfrey and how we can be using it. It's something that I had heard a lot about, read a lot about, and its uses are not just medicinal. You see it a lot in salves and different things for the skin, but it's also useful in the garden. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about this new plant we just started growing. In late spring, we threw some Comfrey seeds that we had purchased around there's kind of a raised bed here around our nectarine tree. The benefit of planting Comfrey around fruit trees, you'll see that a lot because Comfrey sends a very deep taproot way down deep into the ground, sometimes like 8 to 10 feet deep, which is one reason you should be very careful where you plant it because it's really difficult to get rid of. You can share this plant by sharing just the littlest bit of root with somebody. They can plant it and grow the whole plant from that easily. Knowing that if you do plant Comfrey by seed or by getting a root from someone, please pay very close attention to where you plant it, that you're not going to change your mind later. There are plants like mint, morning glories, things that just kind of spread and take over if you plant them without being intentional about where you're planting them. You want to be very careful. But this plant would probably be even harder to eradicate. There are some varieties that do not self-seed, but they can still spread through the roots. This variety does flower and have seeds, and it's beautiful. And I happened to be out here later in the evening, or you would be seeing a whole bunch of bumblebees flying around my head because these little lovely purple flowers, the bumblebees love them. We like pollinators, we love having the bumblebees nearby. But that deep taproot that makes it difficult to get rid of actually reaches way down underneath the top part of the soil here, and it is able to pull up nutrients and minerals from the ground that other plants just don't have access to. So it uses that in the plant. Then the plant, as it dies off for the winter, or if you cut excess leaves and just drop it, they call it chop and drop, on top of the soil like a mulch. As they break down, they're releasing those nutrients from deep under the soil to the plants that you have growing. Great for around fruit trees, but you can use it in the rest of your garden. You can also use the leaves to make what they call compost tea. You could have a bucket of water, chop some of these leaves down, throw them in the water, and let it kind of steep in there for a little while. Not a tea you would want to drink, but really beneficial for your garden. Then you can use that water to water your plants, and it's a great natural fertilizer, giving your plants some much needed nutrients. So really beneficial plant to have in the garden around your other plants if you know what you're doing and you're careful where you plant it. But beyond its help in the garden, Comfrey has been known for many years to have many medicinal benefits. You will find some warnings when they talk about comfrey concerning how safe it is to take internally. There are some people who use it to make teas to drink internally, and there are some benefits, but there are also some risks. There is a certain compound that can be found in it that could potentially damage the liver. As with many herbs, when they test the safety of herbs, they do it by taking a highly concentrated form, feeding it over a long period of time to rats or some other animal, and when there's liver damage, they say, well, this plant damages your liver. Well, don't eat it like that. But today's video, I'm not even going to get into the internal benefits. I'm going to stick to external. We don't even use this plant internally at the moment. I know people do, people love it, and you can look more into that. But today I'm going to talk about it as an external medicinal plant. The name comfrey is its common name. Its scientific name actually means to unite or to grow, grow together. It has other common names that it has been known by throughout the years, including knitback, bruisewort. The term wart at the end of a plant name, wart, actually meant plant. So it kind of has a negative connotation when you see the word wart for us now, but it actually means plant. So, bruisewort, knitbone, and boneset. These names give you a little bit of a clue as to what it's been used for throughout the years. There are some varieties that are more or less potent, but every variety of comfrey is helpful for your skin, and as the name suggests, even bruises, bones, muscles, things under the skin, that it is useful to help heal. I love a good scientific study, and you can look into all kinds of great scientific studies with this particular plant, but I think that experience speaks for itself in so many cases, and it has been used for so long to help heal just a myriad of things. So I'm going to be using, now that we have comfrey growing ourselves, I'm going to be using it to make some salves, and I hope to make some videos soon showing you some of our recipes. And I'm very excited because, like I said, it does help with skin, it helps regenerate, it helps the cells grow. According to the Toxicological Survey of African Medicinal Plants, published in 2014, comfrey acts as an anti-inflammatory to promote the healing of bruises, sprains, and open wounds when applied topically. The roots and leaves of this plant contain the protein allantoin, something like that, which stimulates cell proliferation and promotes wound and bone healing. It's useful for so many things, but it also helps if you've got bumps, bruises, scrapes, and man, I have kids, so, you know, there's always bumps and bruises, hopefully no broken bones. When you're talking about medicinal plants, especially topically, there are several ways that you can utilize these plants with more or less time involved. You can come, and I've just done this, I had a place on my skin that's been on my hand that has been irritated for a long time, so I just made a poultice and I put it under a band-aid just to hold it on for a little while, and then I'm removing it and letting it get some air, refreshing it. You wouldn't want to leave it on too long. But in that case, I just picked a leaf, kind of broke it up. It's got this really kind of slimy inside of, especially in the stems, but when you crush the plant, when you crush the stems, it's almost slimy, and it reminds me a bit of aloe and how it feels. If you've ever broken up an aloe leaf and had that like kind of gooey, slimy, but it's very soothing to the skin, and that's how this has felt. So that was my first time doing that. You can also dehydrate it, store it for later, because the leaves are not out here in the middle of winter. If you had something you needed later in the year, or you weren't going to have access to fresh leaves, you can always dehydrate them easily. You can hang them to dehydrate. I just rinsed them off because they were out here and they were a little dirty. Rinsed them off, broke them into smaller pieces, put them in my dehydrator at a low temperature, and I'm just going to keep an eye on it. Once it's good and dry, we'll store it in a dry jar. That will be available for us to use as we make things later on. But while the plant is here, I'm trying to make good use of the leaves and prepare them for when I might need them, that I would have quick access. So you can make a poultice. Fancy word for saying just crush up some things. You get a little wet to make kind of a paste. If it's really fresh, you don't have to add much water at all. I added some calendula flowers because that's also very soothing and healing for the skin, to make the poultice for my hand. I'm excited to see how this does. There are a lot of over-the-counter things and prescription things that are beneficial, and I'm so grateful that we have, but many of them do not actually promote healing. So there are things that you can use, whether it's hydrogen peroxide or alcohol or antibiotic creams that kill bacteria, which is great for infection and any inflammation that the infection might be causing. But it is not just damaging to the bacteria cells, it's also damaging to your actual skin cells. So while you do want to remove any infection, it can actually, especially continued use, damage the skin cells and make it more difficult for them to heal. So things like Comfrey and many other topical medicinal plants not only have antibacterial or antifungal or anti-inflammatory effects, but they also can promote healing in the skin. You can purchase all kinds of different salves, ointments, different things that have Comfrey all over the place. Any natural, like Mother Earth foods, or we have some local places that are owned by individuals that have some great herbal remedies, and you can usually find things with Comfrey, especially topically. You can also purchase seeds yourself, or sometimes find a piece of root from seed sellers, including on Amazon. So there's a lot of ways to get your hands on this amazing herb. And if you have the space for it and you can give it some time to grow and get started, you will have this plant and all of its benefits for years and years to come. Sometimes when you're getting started with any herbal remedies or using herbs at all, especially medicinally, you can be a little nervous about how to get started. Do I make a poultice? Do I make a tincture? There's all these words that you hear floating around, and until you just jump in there and try something, it sounds so abstract and it sounds so scary, but it's just a plant. It is such an amazing thing to me that God gave us so many plants in various parts of the world that are good for similar things. You find a lot of things like aloe plants in different climates than Comfrey would grow, but they both have really beneficial healing properties to the skin. So God knew what he was doing, and he created these amazing things that we can use for all kinds of things, and gave people the wisdom to try them out. Somebody figured out for the first time that the Comfrey leaf, when you use it as a bandage, helped heal bones faster. And they didn't know why, and they didn't know how, but they saw that it worked, and they used it time and time again throughout the centuries. So I'm excited to try to use it for bumps and bruises we have around here, and I hope you will give it a try too. And I'd love to hear about your experiences with this or any herbal remedy. I'm finding it fascinating, and I just can't wait to share some more with you. Thanks for joining me today to learn a little more about the plant Comfrey. I hope you found it interesting as I did, and helpful. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button and check out some of our other videos, and we will see you another day.